Now we've arrived at what I believe is the most important concept in retirement planning. In fact, if you remember only one thing from today's presentation, I hope it's this. It's not what you own, it's how you own it. I've spent years working with successful professionals, business owners, engineers, executives, and retirees. One thing I've noticed is that most people spend their entire financial lives focused on accumulation. How much is in the 401k? How much is in the IRA? How much is in the brokerage account? How much did the portfolio grow this year? Those are reasonable questions, but they're incomplete questions. Because when retirement arrives, the conversation changes. The question is no longer, how much do I have? The question becomes, how much can I access? How much can I spend? How much can I keep after taxes? How much control do I have? That's where structure becomes incredibly important. Let's think about it this way. Imagine two people who each have $2 million. On paper, they appear identical. Same net worth, same assets, same account balances. Most people would assume they're in exactly the same financial position. They're not, because what matters is not only what they own, it's how they own it. One person may have nearly all of their assets inside tax-deferred accounts, traditional 401ks, traditional IRAs, retirement plans that will eventually generate taxable income. The other person may have assets spread across multiple tax categories, some taxable, some tax-deferred, some tax-advantaged. Those two people have very different levels of flexibility. The account balances may look the same. The future outcomes may be dramatically different. This is where many financial plans fall short. They focus heavily on investments, they focus heavily on rates of return, but they spend very little time discussing structure. And structure is what determines flexibility. I often explain this using what I call the three tax buckets. The first bucket is the taxable bucket. These are assets that may generate taxes along the way. Brokerage accounts, bank accounts. The second bucket is the tax-deferred bucket. This is where most manufacturing professionals have accumulated a large portion of their wealth. Traditional 401s, traditional IRAs, retirement plans where taxes have been postponed. The third bucket is the tax-free bucket. These are assets that may provide income with little or no taxation when properly structured. Now here's the important part. Every bucket has strengths, every bucket has weaknesses. The goal is balance, the goal is flexibility, the goal is options, because options become incredibly valuable in retirement. Let's say tax rates increase in the future. Wouldn't it be nice to have options? The more flexibility your financial structure creates, the more choices you have, and choices create freedom. That's why I often tell clients that retirement planning is not really about money. It's about freedom. It's about being able to live life on your terms. When I was flying helicopters in the Army, we always wanted options. If weather conditions changed, we wanted alternate routes. If a mission changed, we wanted alternate plans. We wanted flexibility. The same principle applies to retirement. Life rarely follows a straight line. Things change, family situations change, health changes, tax laws change, economic conditions change. A retirement plan that lacks flexibility can become fragile. A retirement plan with flexibility can adapt. I've seen this play out many times. I've met people with very large retirement accounts who felt trapped. Everything they owned was concentrated in one type of account. Every withdrawal created taxes. Every decision created consequences. They had assets, but they didn't have flexibility. I've also met people with smaller account balances who had far more control because they had diversified not only their investments, but also their taxation. That's a concept many people overlook. Most people diversify investments, very few diversify taxes, yet taxes often become one of the largest expenses retirees face. And unlike market performance, taxes are something we can often plan around. That's why structure matters. That's why ownership matters. One of the biggest misconceptions I see is people focusing entirely on rate of return. Don't get me wrong, returns matter. But retirement is not won or lost based solely on rate of return. It is won or lost based on distribution, how income is generated, how taxes are managed. I've had people come into my office asking how they can earn another 1 or 2%. My first question is usually this: have you addressed the tax side? Improving structure can sometimes create more value than chasing additional return. Again, it comes back to keeping more of what you've already earned. You've spent decades building your career. You've spent decades contributing to retirement plans. You've spent decades making sacrifices and preparing for the future. The goal now isn't simply to accumulate more. The goal is to make sure what you've built works as efficiently as possible. Because retirement isn't just an investment challenge, it's a planning challenge, it's a tax challenge, it's a distribution challenge, it's a flexibility challenge. The people who tend to enjoy retirement the most are not always the people who accumulated the most wealth. They're often the people who planned intentionally, In reality, retirement planning should begin long before retirement arrives, because many of the best opportunities to improve outcomes happen while you still have options. That's why I believe one of the most powerful questions a retiree can ask is not, what do I own, but rather, how do I own it? Because the answer often determines how much freedom, control, and confidence you experience throughout retirement. And that's why it's not what you own, it's how you own it, is retirement risk number 5 and the foundation that ties everything together. As we wrap up today, let's take a moment to review what we've covered. We discussed the 5 retirement risks most people never see coming. The first was the tax time bomb inside traditional retirement accounts. The second was sequence of returns risk and the impact of timing. The third was Medicare IRMAA and hidden costs. The fourth was healthcare and long-term care expenses, one of the greatest financial challenges. And finally, we discussed what I believe is the most important concept of all. It's not what you own, it's how you own it. If there's one thing I've learned throughout my life, whether flying helicopters in the Army, building businesses, helping families through difficult circumstances, or working with clients preparing for retirement, it's that preparation matters. The people who experience the most confidence are rarely the people who simply accumulated the largest accounts. They're the people who have a plan. One of the biggest misconceptions is that retirement planning is something you do a few years before. In reality, it should begin long before. The good news is that you don't have to figure this out alone. After today's presentation, some of you may be thinking, I've never looked at my retirement this way. What I've found over the years is that most successful professionals don't need more information. They need clarity, someone to help them connect the dots. That's why I offer a complimentary retirement and tax review. During that conversation, we'll take a closer look at your current situation. We'll discuss your accounts, potential tax exposure, income planning, and most importantly, opportunities to improve your structure and flexibility. There is no obligation. My goal is simply to help you understand where you stand and whether there are opportunities to strengthen your plan. You worked hard to build what you have. The last thing you want is to discover that taxes or distribution mistakes are taking more than they should. Thank you again for spending your time with me today. I hope today's discussion has given you a new perspective on retirement planning. Remember, retirement is not just about growing assets, it's about protecting them, creating flexibility, preserving your lifestyle. Remember, education changes outcomes, strategy changes futures. I look forward to speaking with many of you soon. Remember, it is all about education, and everyone needs to know how they can benefit. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.